Hey, welcome to Agri-Talk. On this episode, we're talking about agritourism, which is, where you might go and tour a farm, like a petting zoo, or maybe have fun on hay rides and different things. So we'll talk about the business of that coming up. Agri-tourism. Have you ever done agritourism?
I have. I've went to a farm, and which it seems a little strange because you don't usually go to. We're not used to saying go to the farm and have fun. Mm-hmm. A farm is work, hard labor.
Right.
You're baling hay or feeding animals or stuff like that. In this sense, it's
not where you take your kids and go, this is what I used to have to do.
Maybe not exactly that way, but you go there and now the farmer, what he's doing is try to entertain you and show you in a entertaining fashion of how the farm is. Like they may now cut mazes into corn or hide trinkets throughout the farm, and you got to do a hunt, mm-hmm. or things like that. And I even know a couple of places that have put in a wire to where you get to zip through, and maybe there'll be animals on this side or animals on this side, or who knows exactly what.
Would you have any like food tasting?
You could, yeah. Could be a variety of things.
Or a band?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere from that to, it's a way to entice you, I'm going to say, to think local, buy from the farmer.
Okay. I wasn't sure if, it was to educate them city folk.
A little bit of everything.
Eggs don't grow on trees.
It's that too, you're right. You just can't, you don't say I'm buying my eggs from Kroger.
Right.
I get my eggs from Kroger. Well, where do they get them?
Yeah. I buy my meat from the store where no animals were harmed.
Exactly. Yeah. So
today we have Christie Welch with us, mm-hmm. and she's going to talk more about it and some of the laws too behind it.
Absolutely, she's been doing this direct marketing and in a sense of agritourism and marketing food as well for them. Mm-hmm. So Christie, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been with the university and such.
Well, thank you, Mike and Dwayne, for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here. I am currently the Direct Food and Agricultural Marketing Specialist with Ohio State University Extension, and I am based in Piketon, Ohio, at our Research and Extension facility there. And of course, that facility is part of the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences. I've been there actually almost 19 years, but focused most of my time working with small farmers here in Ohio, direct marketing their product through farmers markets, through agritourism, on-farm markets, value-added product, and those kinds of things.
That right there alone is a mouthful to do. Mm-hmm. But this whole direct marketing thing, I think, has now become a huge deal. Would you say, Christie? I mean, it's out front now.
What's direct marketing? Is that just farmers markets? Or more?
So that's a great question. So the way we define direct marketing is we're actually looking at any way that local producer markets that product so that it gets directly to the end consumer. So a lot of small producers start with farmers markets because they're doing the transaction
or the truck beside the road
with the end user, or the farm market or a roadside stand. But we go a little bit further and also talk about even direct to restaurants, direct to grocery stores. So we really run the gamut with how we assist those small producers. But there's so much interest in local food right now. People want to know where their food comes from, how it's produced, where it's produced, and all those kinds of things.
Right, because whenever you go to a restaurant, that's one of those things like, hey, we get it all local and it's fresh right off the farm.
Right.
And you have more trust that way, I think.
Yep, I think that makes people feel better, mm-hmm. that maybe not as many chemicals or things like that might be getting into your system.
Right.
But, and the way I see it is you're also trying to help your neighbor.
Right, true.
And everyone has to make a living somehow.
Right. And so I think the general public is so far removed from food production that they have a lot of questions. And so one of the ways that small producers especially have been able to benefit is continuing to do that production of food and inviting the general public on to see that in an entertaining manner. Thus the term agritourism, so that they're learning how peaches are grown or where eggs come from or how beef cattle are raised.
Would you consider a farm that says, come pick your own strawberries or watermelons or pumpkins? Is that agritourism?
That is considered agritourism, and one of the things we wanted to talk about today is Ohio 2 years ago passed Senate Bill 75, which provides some liability protection to small farmers and those that offer agritourism activities to consumers in the local community. Mm-hmm. So one of the benefits of having that law here in Ohio, again because people are so removed from farming nowadays, they don't recognize the hazards that can be inherent in a farming operation. And so to help provide some risk management tools for these small producers, Ohio passed this law. There's other states around the country that have similar laws. But if you're producing an agricultural product and then decide to invite the general public onto your farm to help educate them on the process, there are some protections built in through Senate Bill 75.
Because you never know, the woman shows up to like pick strawberries in high heels and a field isn't exactly flat.
Well, true. And then you also have, if you're doing agritourism, maybe a kid has games or is playing a game or an activity or crawling on an old tractor tire as a activity, I guess, right?
You get
maybe falls off, could break his arm.
Yeah.
That's all covered underneath that, I think. Is that right?
To some extent, yes. So the producers still have to do their due diligence and make sure they're providing as safe an environment as they possibly can. Really, when we think about the protections that fall under the agritourism law, and let me just say I'm not an attorney. We have a great ag attorney through OSU, and we'll share her contact information. But when it comes to those things that are inherently dangerous on a farming operation, you still, as a producer, have to do your due diligence. So if you know there's a groundhog hole in your strawberry field, it's up to you to make sure that you either mark that hole to keep people away from that or fill it in or whatever you can do to help try to prevent accidents before they happen. That goes along with signage. Signage is very important to tell people where they can and cannot go on a particular operation.
Stay out of the creek.
Right. Exactly. So if a farmer's doing their due diligence and doing everything they should be doing, I can't come onto that farm and say maybe I pick a product that I'm not supposed to pick. Maybe it's a weed or something, and I don't know personally what it is. The farmer's done everything they can to control those things, but if I eat that then and I get sick, well, that's on me because I shouldn't be eating something when I don't know what it is.
Right.
So
what prompted this law, do you know?
So there's been so much interest in food safety illness outbreaks is one, but also I think, and again we're seeing this nationwide, not just here in Ohio, that it's really tough to be profitable with small farms. And there's a real need to educate the general consumer on how food is produced in this country. And so it makes sense to provide an education outlet to consumers by inviting them onto the farm and seeing your production. But we wanted to have some tools again available to help small producers just manage that risk of inviting the general public onto their farm. And so, as I mentioned, that law has been passed in a couple of states around the country, and Ohio was proactive 2 years ago and got that on the books here in our state as well.
That sounds cool.
Do you have to register as an agritourism site, Christie?
You do not have to register as an agritourism site in Ohio, but to fall under the protections of the law, the agricultural production has to come first. So, for example, we see a lot of...
you just can't convert your farm to a tourist destination and not use it as a farm.
Correct.
Okay.
Or you can't take an idle piece of property that hasn't been farmed for a number of years and put up, say, a wedding barn, which is something that we're seeing a lot
Right.
of, and call it an agritourism operation and fall under those laws. So
Okay.
the ag piece has to be there first and continuing. And so if, again, you decide that you've been producing strawberries for years and you decide you want to invite the general public to come onto your farm and have the experience of picking their own strawberries, well, that would fall under agritourism. And in the law here in Ohio, the definition is pretty broad. So it's pick your own operations. It's a lot of farms do school tours, again, to help provide that education. We have the wedding barns. We have the zip lines. There are many wineries or on-farm breweries that are popping up around the state. And so they're producing usually grapes for the wine production. Hops locally for the craft beer production. And so the agricultural production is happening, but it's a way to really enhance the revenue of that small farm as well as provide that needed education to the public.
I think you got a picture, Christie, of just a broad agritourism site. It just looks like a farm. It's not in the right season, I guess, but we're looking over top of a farm. Is that right?
Exactly. So with this particular example, we were not in their season, which this farm focuses a lot on you pick pumpkins. And so I actually visited the farm before they were in season, but where the picture is taken from, there's like a tower that was built out of decking material. So participants can come up to the top of that, get this wonderful view of this farm, and then off to the right of where the picture is their corn maze. So it gives you that bird's eye view of the corn maze that you can see before you ever walk out in there, or maybe your kids are out in the corn maze and you want to keep a little bit of an eye on them, so you can go up on that platform and see down in the corn maze. But you can see some other things throughout this picture where they have slides, they have shell corn pits where kids can get in a small amount of corn, just, you know, an inch or 2, 3 deep, and they put shovels and buckets and dump trucks and those kinds of things, and the little kids just love those kinds of things.
Another form of a sand pile.
Absolutely. It's just either corn or soybeans.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And kids just love that. But they have a lot of additional activities that happen on this farm. Again, I just wasn't able to visit when they were in season.
And then off to the side, you see corn, and so that's the actual farming of it.
Yes.
So you have everything to consider that an agritourism site. And then they could be using the barn there for, you know, maybe selling beverages or a sandwich or something too,
Yep,
right?
you're exactly right. They even invite some food vendors in.
Okay.
And so you can have lunch and beverages while you're out there with your family having fun on the farm, whether it's picking pumpkins or playing in the corn maze, or they just have a lot of activities that happen on that farm.
So inside the barn, they could look something like this even.
Yes, absolutely. So this is actually a farm market that operates year-round here in Ohio, and farm markets also fall under that agritourism. This particular market does allow you pick in season. Again, it was not in season when I visited, but this is just a shot of the inside of their farm market where you can see they have apples available, they've got cider back there in the cooler, and a lot of value-added products throughout the market as well. But those, again, fall under that agritourism operation.
Now, when you talk about, you know, like the apples and things, do they have to, is there something in the law or something that says they have to come from that farm? Could that farmer buy from another farm?
To best of my knowledge, it doesn't have to 100% come from that farm. As long as they're producing some food items or agricultural activities happening on that farm, they do still fall under that. And I will
like
say
for wineries, so there's different states have different rules as far as wineries that, you know, in Ohio you can raise your grapes, but you can also supplement with buying juice from somewhere else.
Yes.
But in Virginia, that percentage, it has to be more from your property and not bought off of site.
Yeah, and you know, when you get dive down into the law, you know, I'm sure that's where the lawyer comes from and all that stuff. But yeah. buying from another farmer, I think that certainly makes sense to do that, because some farmers may say, well, I'm not going to be the person that brings on these people onto my farm. I don't want them onto my farm, but I'll sell you my apples to sell, which would be next door.
Right.
Something like that. So.
Well, even just the climate variation, of course, we're having this crazy spring here in Ohio,
Yeah,
but
nice
fresh produce is going to come on a week or two before in southern Ohio than it will in northern Ohio. So it might be where I start sending my sweet corn or my apples or tomatoes or whatever that might be up north here in Ohio to help, again, people get excited about the produce that's coming. So there is some of that goes on.
That certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
What else does a farmer need to do to be able to call themselves agritourism? We don't have to register necessarily, but we do have to talk about signage and things like that. You said is there one particular sign that we have to do?
Yes, that's correct. The legislation was very correct about the signage that you have to post as people enter your agritourism operation to gain those liability protections. And they were very specific about the wording, the size, black and white, all those kinds of things. This is actually a template of the sign that we developed and put on our direct marketing website at the OSU South Centers. But this is almost probably 36 to 40 inch sign, so it's not a small sign. But again, to fall under that law, you are required as that law to post this sign. Now, I do want to say too, again, as producers, we need to do our due diligence and provide a safe environment. We also need to make sure we're having conversations with our insurance provider too, and make sure they're aware of what we're doing, and make sure they have the proper coverage in place as well.
Interesting, because it would probably be different coverage for selling food or just having people on your grounds. So.
Yep, and depending on the activities, do you have livestock on the farm or do you not have livestock on the farm? Do you have a zip line? And of course there's risk, and it runs the gamut. Jumping pillows, the corn mazes, the pick your own pumpkins, apples, all those kinds of things. Hay rides, that's another thing that you need to think about. So you just really need to have that conversation with your insurance provider and make sure that you are properly insured.
You were talking about something a little strange earlier, goat yoga or something.
Yes.
I'd never heard of that.
There are all kinds of crazes coming out this
There
year.
are.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that can be really beneficial for producers here in Ohio is to watch the coasts. So California or the East Coast, because a lot of times trends will start there and they'll work their way to the center of the country.
Yeah, they may be good or bad.
Exactly. But I did first hear about goat yoga. It came from California and kind of worked its way this way. And again, people are very interested in kind of getting back to the farm and learning about goats and how they behave, and of course they're cute, so we all want to hang out with them, right? But as a producer, again, we have to think about the safety of the people we're inviting onto our farm. And unfortunately, goats are one of those animals that can shed pathogens that then can be communicated to humans if they don't properly wash their hands and make sure that they do those kinds of things. So just because it's a trend, it doesn't necessarily mean it's something you want to do. But again,
I remember
watching the
Grandpa
coasts.
doing yoga with the goats.
Yeah. Jumping over them to get out of the way so I can feed,
Yeah.
That was stretching across them or something. Opposite kind of yoga, I guess.
Exactly.
The wrong stretches, I guess.
I guess another trend that we've seen a lot of, again, with the interest in local foods and food production, are farm-to-table dinners. So that would qualify as an agritourism activity where you invite the general public to come out to your farm and you serve a completely locally sourced meal, whether it all came from that particular farm or if you worked within a community to source all the ingredients that go into that dinner. And then a lot of times they'll have a local chef that comes and prepares the meal. So you have that experience of consuming that wonderful peach crisp right out in the peach orchard where the peaches came from.
I think, aren't there some where the cook will show you how to prepare these things?
Absolutely, yes, that's an option as well.
That seems pretty interesting.
That happens a lot. They'll have cooking demonstrations, whether it's at a farm market or a farmer's market. People love those, yes.
And typically they'll share like the recipe and maybe tell you, hey, if you're allergic to this, don't eat this. this.
Exactly.
Because I think you probably have to post that too. Hey, remember, there's peanuts or something in this or not, or things like that, right?
Now, of course, we don't typically grow peanuts here in
True,
Ohio, although they could be. But yes, again, make sure you're doing your due diligence and informing the people you're inviting on your farm of what to expect.
It is possible to grow peanuts here, because back in the Carter years, peanuts were a big thing, and so we planted some peanuts in our garden, and it worked.
Yeah.
Christie, what's the typical time frame that an agritourism site is in business?
That's a great question, Dwayne. And of course, here in Ohio, typically we're talking about the regular growing season. So start out in the spring with strawberries or asparagus, or go all the way through the fall with pick your own apples and peaches. And a lot of operations here in Ohio do pick your own pumpkins, which of course are a fall crop as well. But then here in Ohio, we also have Christmas tree growers too. So you might be out on a farm in December cutting your own Christmas tree, and that would fall as an agritourism activity as well.
So they could be serving hot chocolate or something like that, while in another way to add to their income, I guess.
Absolutely. Again, it's been a real benefit for small producers to just generate another income stream and to diversify their cash flow, so that instead of having income coming into the farm only when they have a product to sell, adding value and generating additional revenue for the farm.
That seems smart to not only make a product but add an experience with it. You know, and that's a good way to keep them coming back.
I think so. Do you see a lot of this trending in the future, Christie? What do you think is the next piece of agritourism?
Wow, that's a really great question, Dwayne. And I do think it depends on the operation, because, you know, when we small farmers, this is our home, this is our family farm typically. And so not every producer is confident or comfortable inviting the general public basically to their home. So I think that people really need to explore that and see if that's something that they want to do. But I just think kind of the possibilities are endless at this point. We've been seeing a lot of haunted hay rides and those kinds of things in the fall with the pick your own pumpkins.
Is it more that you'll see these businesses pass along to family members, I guess? Family to family, or we're still maybe in the young state of this? Maybe we haven't seen farms, agritourism sites passed to, father to son or daughter to whatever?
I think we've seen some generational. I think it really has kind of fluctuated as the market fluctuates. So I've talked to like orchard producers where at one point people were much more interested in convenience. So they'd go to the local grocery store and buy their apples. So at that point, a lot of the apple growers were wholesaling their apples to grocery stores around the state. Whereas customers have, again, seeking out that information about how a product's grown, they're wanting to come back to the farm. So we've got multi-generational operations. It's just that the market has fluctuated, and of course they go through cycles. So that's we're just going to have to keep an eye on it, see where we end up.
Interesting. With we're a few minutes left. What else can we cover with agritourism, Christie?
I think we had a few sites too that we wanted to show. And what kind of information can you find there?
So if you would like more information about Senate Bill 75, we have a web link here for you. Peggy Hall, who's an attorney, an ag attorney with OSU Extension. This is a shot of her homepage, and she's got a bulletin on her website that talks a lot about and goes very in depth on the agritourism law. So she's a great resource and has great information on that website.
So what's the beginning of that website?
It's farmlaw.
farmlaw.osu.edu.
Okay.
Yep. And then we have on our website, the OSU South Center is our direct marketing website. If you just go there and on the marketing page, go down to webinars on the right hand or the left hand side, you can see right there at the top it says special webinars. And there's a link for the Ohio Senate Bill 75. where soon after that law was passed, Peggy Hall, our ag attorney with OSU Extension, and I put together this webinar, which again is about an hour long and goes in depth into what requirements producers have with the law and what protections it provides to those agritourism operations as well.
Lots of information. A new farmer world, maybe, I guess.
Yes.
A new futures.
What? If I was a farmer, it'd seem like something I wouldn't mind doing. It does take some time out of your day, or it could take hiring somebody to mind that end of it while you're doing the regular farming activities.
Yeah. Definitely so. And I know there's lots of information out there.
Do Amish people get into this? Because I know around in this area, there's lots of Amish farms and different businesses.
I was just trying to think. That's a good question, Mike. And I guess some of them offer pick your own operations, but I don't know how much more broadly than that they would go.
Yeah. I don't see anything like that around yet.
That'd be something that I don't know if they wouldn't mind starting, because you know the Amish are a tourist thing anyway. Maybe not here, but in other parts of the state.
Right.
Yeah, maybe if you watch this in another 5 years, they might be here. Who knows?
That's right.
So, Christie, how do we get a hold of you other than the South Center site? Email address, call you, or just how do we do that?
Email's best to reach me because I'm on the road quite a bit working with producers. My email address is Welch, WELCH.183 at OSU.edu. Or if you missed that, you can get a hold of course, Mike or Patrick or Dwayne, and they know how to get a hold of me as well. But we'd be happy to help you any way that we can.
Okay.
Great. Any last question, Mike? I think we've covered agritourism, in the amount of time we've got anyway. I think we can cover a lot of other stuff on
it's a little broader than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It covers a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of activities out there that are unknown to people, and they may not even consider themselves agritourism yet. So.
Yeah, well, I remember going to a place back when I was little that, they basically turned their barn into a playground.
Yeah.
It wasn't a producing farm, but you kind of got a farm experience. It was cool. You have to climb around and jump in the hay and all that stuff.
Interesting. It's fun stuff. I think it's a new, like I said, a new job or a new future for a farmer. And the question is, I hope everything continues and nobody gets hurt or anything like that.
Right.
So, Hey, we're out of time, Mike. So I guess until next time, we'll see everyone next month.